Crossroads in December 1975. In fact, on reflection, I hadn't had an interview for a job since 1961. Crossroads, however, was very different. The interview board consisted of Joyce Vane, the head of the whole school, Joan Ashby, acting head of the primary school, Pam Bear, senior speech therapist, and Charles Potter, psychologist. They put me through a taxing interview until dear Joan Ashby caught sight of my CV, on which it said that I'd worked for the British War Office as a teacher for the British Army in Kenya. She, bless her, immediately said, "You know, Joyce, the War Office only employs the very best teachers." And I'm pretty sure that got me the job. I never regretted it, and learned so much from the devoted teachers and therapists. I really loved my 30 years or so here, and saw many changes, difficulties, and ups and downs. But just look at this wonderful school now. I've never forgotten my first day at Crossroads in January 1976. Of course, at that time we were still in Wellington Road, Parktown. I was employed as a teacher aide at the Standard 4, that is grade 6 level, and we lowly aides had to be on break duty every day in order to allow the master teachers to have uninterrupted breaks. We then had our breaks afterwards. In addition, we had to take it in turns to be on late gate duty every day, which meant that we had to wait with the children until they were collected, whatever the time. So, there I was. Needless to say, I had offered to do the first day, with two rather strange-looking children who hadn't been collected on time, and eventually they started to weep and wail. I was doing the mummy thing, being all sympathetic and comforting and reassuring them that they would soon be collected, until even I, with all my wonderful patience, could stand it no longer. So off we went to the office in the hopes that there would still be someone there who could help me and tell me what to do next. Imagine my surprise when the door was flung open and there, at the top of the steps, stood one of the psychologists who just stood and bellowed at the children and ordered them to cease their tears immediately and telling them not to be such big babies. Apparently, this was a regular occurrence, and the dear children were merely trying to get more sympathy from me. I was learning quite fast. Know your children. It was really baptism by fire. I think we moved from Parktown to Victory Park sometime during 1978, and what a move that proved to be. When we arrived, we found that all the little sort of, the nookies around the quad where the therapists were expected to work, well, there were no doors, and in fact, they had to be glassed in to make the place more workable. I'm pretty sure those were our first of many alterations necessary to make this place into a school. Incidentally, I've always been told that the architects charged with designing Crossroads took themselves off on a visit to remedial schools in the US to gather ideas for the building, all at the school's expense, of course. I hate to think where they went. Can you imagine building a school for children with learning difficulties and disabilities, with no ceilings in the classrooms, so that the sounds floated from one room to the next? Putting that right was one of the biggest undertakings, but we all soldiered on, discovering more and more about learning difficulties and differences and how the brain works. Totally fascinating. So things were starting to improve as far as facilities were concerned. One of the big developments was the building of the school hall. In those far-off days, we used to have regular rain, and the staff were continuously complaining about the mud. So, dear old Simmy Jaffet, who was the administrator, bought all of us white wellies. We looked rather smart in our white wellies, paddling through the mud. What a pleasure that hall has been, having been used for the biennial concerts, weekly assemblies, karate, brownies, dance with timber, discos, AGMs, etc., etc. It's been a great pleasure for me to see Crossroads continue to grow and prosper since my retirement nearly 12 years ago. The new buildings give the school an air of permanence, unlike those grotty prefabs we used to have. But all the development is due in no small part to not only the Board of Trustees, who've been wonderful, but also to Anne Saunders, whose skills as a site manager have been honed